Hey guys, it's Kim here with Fairily Fiber Fun. Thanks for joining me on Tour de Fleece Day 13. To stop and think for a minute. July 13th. So today I decided to do something drastically different. The prompt was to upcycle at least one component. So I decided to core spin around some little tiny lights. The first light string, I had two of them. My daughter had two of them. And the first one, I really struggled. So the entire footage of that is sped up about 4 times speed. And then the second string of lights, I let you see the actual real life time. And it was so frustrating. I've never done anything like this before. And so it was a huge learning experience. So I have these two little little tiny light strips, battery operated, and they're my daughter's. I asked her if she had any, and she said yes, she had two of them. And so I thought, well, I will give this a try. I let her pick the colors, and she wanted green. She's like, what colors do you have, Mom? And so I pulled out all of my dyed wool that I have in individual color, organized by color in boxes, and she picked the green. She held up a green piece of wool and she goes, what about something like this? And I should have just used that. But instead, I got fancy and I said, well, I made these Rolags recently. What do you think of these? So she was very happy with the Rolags. And technically I made these for the shop. I made 2 sets, one set for me, one set for the shop. So now I get to spend something for me out of that. But in the meantime, here I am blabbing and you're watching me fool with this without any explanation. I had the most difficult time getting this to work. The wires kept over twisting and I couldn't get it to go on the wheel properly. And I finally said, you know what? Grace Shalom Hopkins did a video where she core spun on wire and she put the wire around one toilet paper tube and used a second toilet paper tube to hold it in place. So I tried that, and at first it didn't work, but I used some tape and held it together and it worked beautifully. So here is, I went from 4 times speed to 2 times speed here so you can get a little bit better an idea of what I was doing without it taking forever. But once I had the wire wrapped around the tube and it was allowed to twist and twirl all it wanted to, things went a whole lot smoother. I did put a piece of tape where I wasn't supposed to. The wire didn't want to move because there was tape in the way at the top. And then there was a piece of the toilet paper tube that was catching the wire. So I eventually ripped that off because it was super annoying. But so every time the wire came back around to that spot, I'd have to fiddle with it and move it and all that. But I was getting so frustrated. And then the relief that, oh, this is working. Maybe I can get this done. Maybe my idea will actually work. And yes, using 2 toilet paper tubes was magic. It worked. And I'm so happy I tried that step. Granted, it still didn't work as well as I wanted it to, but you know, there's 2 of these, so I can always do something a little different for the second one, right? And see if there's a little less frustration. But they're short, they don't take long to spin. I'm at the end of this one, look at that. So I just spin to the end and then break the Rolag and fold the Rolag up around the end of the light strip and let it twist to itself again. So anyway, I hope that made sense. And then trying to get the little light switch out of the leader was a pain and took me about 10 minutes. I removed 99% of that so that you wouldn't be terribly bored. And then I had to fix the wool at the switch end to get everything to stay put. I did not set the twist in any way. I didn't steam it or anything. I spun them on the wires. I spun the wool onto the lights and handed them back to my daughter and said, here you go, they're done. She's really happy with them, by the way. So here is the second light strip, and I am attempting to spin it from the other end, which is a really big mistake for a couple of reasons. One is there's nothing really to hold onto the leader. There's a teeny weeny bump in the wires. Those bumps are the lights. And that bump doesn't want to hold on to the leader at all. It just wants to keep coming out. So here I am, struggling, frustrated, trying to get the wire into the leader. It's not working. I'm trying to get it into the wool. It's not wanting to stay. At this point, I'm going, okay, I had a successful first time and I'm having an unsuccessful second time. I thought this would be easier. Finally, I give up and I turn the light strip around and I'm like, you know what? We'll just do this the same as last time, because that did work eventually. This is not working at all. So here I am setting up again for a totally different approach, which I'd already done, turning the wire around, working from the other end, so I have something to catch in that leader. Lesson learned. A big bulky item will hold on to that leader better than a slippery wire. Now, if I really wanted to use wire, I could have folded it over the leader, folded it through the loop in my leader, but I didn't want to damage the lights. So I didn't do that. Now, knowing that the first bit of the first light strip didn't want to start spinning, I went ahead and hand wrapped the wool around this one until I had the little switch far enough into the flyer to where the rest of the light strip would twist. Because the problem is the leader twists, but the switch and what's past the switch doesn't twist. So you have to get the switch further up onto the wheel to force twist to go where you want it to. And I was struggling so much. I don't know what happened, but at some point I changed directions and I spun this one the opposite way from the other one. And I think it worked better, except that it never wanted to go onto the bobbin. And I think that's because I was spinning the wrong way, but I'm not entirely sure. It could have been something else going on. I don't know. I'm at this point, my brain has just about had it for troubleshooting and was like, we're thinking about what we're trying to figure out, what we just want to get this spun and be done. So it was interesting, and things didn't go quite as smoothly as the first strip, but I did get it to work. Had to hand wind every bit onto the bobbin, but you know, it's really not that much, just a few feet, maybe 2 yards at the most. Not much at all for hand winding onto the bobbin. It's not like I'm doing hundreds of yards of yarn. And I spun this light strip thicker. So I allowed more texture into it, purposely core spun thicker, and I really like how it turned out better. I thought I would have to dodge lights, but it turns out they're so tiny I went right over them without any trouble. And they're bright enough that they shine through the wool without any issue. So this was actually a very interesting experiment, one that I have no intention of ever repeating, but now I can say that I've done it, and it's a pain in the patootie, and it was kind of fun, a whole lot frustrating. I learned a lot of what not to do. And if you have any tips, tricks, or suggestions on what to do better, if you've ever spun one of these, please tell me. Like, this was not working very well compared to my normal smooth blast through them spins. Oh, So yeah, if you have any suggestions on how to make this job a lot easier, please tell me. And at the very least, I hope you learned something from my mistakes. If you ever tried to do something like this, that you won't have as much trouble as I had. And you won't spend an hour fighting with your wheel, your lights, and your wool. Because that's pretty ridiculous. But, you know, we learn through trial and error, and this Tour de Fleece seems to be a learn new things, trial and error sort of thing. Normally, I prefer to learn a new skill, become confident in that skill, and then share my journey with you. But turns out that this year, this Tour de Fleece has been a lot of, let's learn something new together, and I will show you my very messy learning process. So I hope you enjoyed the messy learning process this time around. And I think I have chattered on and on and on, but you know, it's core spinning a strip of lights, 2 strips of lights, for the first time ever. I've never core spun wire before. The end of this light strip was folded over. So I tucked the tail of the wool through, pinched it down, pinched the wires down, and just kind of twisted the wool around the end there. And then I didn't even bother to put it all the way on the bobbin. I pulled it out of the hooks and then unrolled it from the bobbin completely. So there we have pretty lights on a new fuzzy green wire. And once again, trying to take it off the leader was a royal pain, but it was a little easier this time because of how I started the spin. So there we have it, an interesting new spin, an interesting experiment, and a whole big journey. I hope you enjoyed it today, and I will see you next time. Bye!